Hey, so I'm heading back to Sanford to do an interview with Frances Oliver, and I'm very excited about that because she is kind of known as the Aunt Esther, for those of you that know August Wilson, of Sanford. So she's a local historian, civil rights leader. She's been doing this forever, and I'm really excited. Everyone in Sanford said, if you speak to anyone, you need to speak to Frances Oliver. So I'm going to get to speak to her today and get a little education. All right. I will talk to you when I get to Sanford. Bye. Okay, so I'm in Sanford, Florida, and I am on historic Goldsboro Road or Boulevard. And yeah. So it's interesting to be in this neighborhood, in the Goldsboro community, compared to where I was in Sanford most of the week near City Hall. And I'm just passing a sign that says Historic Goldsboro Community, established 1891. But it's good to be here. It's good to see the contrast of downtown Sanford compared to Goldsboro. And this clearly isn't as affluent as it used to be. I think Miss Frances will enlighten me on why that is. Okay, so I have a couple hours before my interview starts, and I'm going to drive around the town of Goldsboro just to kind of get an idea of what the community looks like. And everybody's super friendly. I've already, people walking down the street have said hello and hi, and generally that's what I've experienced in black neighborhoods, being black. I don't know if anybody knows this, but we always speak to each other. I remember doing a little research on why black folks speak to each other, not only in their own neighborhoods, but if you don't know them, or if you're in a neighborhood where it's foreign to both of you, and it dates back to safety reasons, to be safe, to acknowledge the presence of someone else that looks like you, just in case something goes wrong. So you always say hi. How are you? Introduce yourself. So when something goes wrong, racially, historically, you have each other's back. Well, not that it's crazy populated by Riverwalk today, but it's interesting. I had a couple that I just interviewed, a traveling couple, and they were really interesting. They said they were been nomads for 14 years, and they live in a boat and in a bus. And they travel around the country, constantly moving. They started their own business. They have a YouTube channel, so I will post that down here so you can check them out. There was a group of African-American women who I thought for sure would want to talk about civil rights. And the older women in the group just said, no, thank you. And wouldn't even accept a card. And the younger African-American woman said, took a card from me, so hopefully she will contact me. I just had a gay couple pass me, and everybody's been super sweet, by the way, even when they're declining. But I thought for sure, again, my assumption was, oh, they want to talk about civil rights, but they did not either, but they took a card, so maybe they will contact me. So, assumptions aside, no, not aside, assumptions, or just that, assumptions. Now, I'm the father of 2 young children, 6-year-old girl, 4-year-old boy. I don't know if I grab their hand when I see an African-American man and then let it go after I get past him. Just saying. So I just spent an hour and a half with Miss Frances, talking to her and interviewing her, which was lovely. And now I am going to see Mr. Bonaparte in City Hall. Doing this, you're seeing how older black Americans have just given everything they have. I thought Miss Frances has the Goldsboro Museum here, which used to be a black community, and still is a black community, but Goldsboro used to be incorporated, and it was absorbed into Sanford, and as Goldsboro people say, it was taken away from them. Yeah, it's just interesting that, you know, the ignorance of myself and probably a lot of people that, you know, how do I not know about Goldsboro? How do you not learn about Goldsboro in American history? Her museum, she was talking about her museum. There's a Sanford Museum and then there's the Goldsboro Museum. And I'm like, why aren't Goldsboro artifacts in the Sanford Museum? It's, you know, it's unbelievable. And you talk about, you know, how far this country has come, and, you know, Ms. Francis was talking about, and how far it hasn't come. But yeah, and then she showed me the museum, which is beautiful. And if you come to Florida, you should go to the Goldsboro Museum. She has amazing artifacts in there. It's small, it's compact. She even has a room where it shows how, when Goldsboro was Goldsboro, how people lived. This is what a room looked like. So it's fascinating and interesting and historical and important, and sad that not everyone gets to experience these things. But you guys get to experience. I'm sorry I couldn't take the camera into the museum because they didn't allow cameras in the museum. But yeah, I mean, it's it's remarkable. So Goldsboro is an area of Sanford, but Goldsboro used to be its own town, and it was incorporated in 1891 by a gentleman by the name of William Clark. Now, William Clark had a brother named Joseph Clark, and that's important because Joseph Clark founded the town of Eatonville, Florida, which is the oldest black town in Florida, and then Goldsboro was the second oldest town in Florida, black town in Florida. So these towns were incorporated, but in 1911, the Florida legislature dissolved their incorporation, thereby dissolving that town. And when I say town and incorporation, it's important because this black town had its own post office. You know, it had its own city council. It was an autonomous city, town, incorporated. So when that was dissolved, it was dissolved because Sanford, the mayor of Sanford, they wanted the town. They wanted the land. And so, you know, the Goldsboro leaders started a campaign and petitioned, but to no avail. And in 1911, the Sanford City Council passed a resolution to annex Goldsboro. And then the legislature in Florida dissolved the incorporation and then made this all into Sanford. And once the town was dissolved, it was no longer autonomous. They no longer had the voting power. And the city became run down. The city was basically stolen from the people that incorporated that town. I'm back because I want to say, go to the Goldsboro Museum. It's open Tuesday through Friday from 1:30 to 4:30. I believe those are the hours. Look it up, but I think it's goldsboromuseum.com. I will put that down below, or here, or wherever this camera is faced. But go. If you live in Florida, go. If you're visiting Florida anytime soon, when everything opens back up and you're going to Disney World or Kissimmee, go to Goldsboro Museum. It's a stop. It's a stop you should make. It's a historical stop. And ask for Miss Francis. You can say Robert Manning Jr. sent you. She won't remember who I am. She probably, maybe she will. I don't know. But go. It's really interesting. And she's an interesting person to talk to. Whew, 97 degrees, Florida. 97. It's hot. I just finished my interview with Mr. Bonaparte. He was super busy here at City Hall in Sanford. And he asked me how long would it take. I said, how long do you have? He said, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. I said, we can do it in 10 minutes. And we did it in 10 minutes. We started the interview and I was like, oh boy. Politician. Kind of like a scripted answer for every question I asked. And then I turned the camera off. And he said, okay, camera's off. And I said, yes. And he said, You asked me about how it affected me personally. And then he started talking. I'm finding it's unbelievable what politicians of color have to deal with in their work life versus their personal life. And it's the same thing we all black folks deal with in their work life versus their personal life.
Wekesa is a Ugandan businessman, a black African married to a white American. They believe they are safer in Uganda than in the US, safer from the racial discrimination his wife observed growing up in the US.
Every time we have conversation, our firstborn is thinking about university, and the secondborn. And it's very sad that she has to tell them, if you're thinking about university outside Uganda, don't think about the US because of the racial challenges that are in there. But also at the same time, people like me, the husband who travels to the US for business, or them that travel for family issues, they go there in a very scared way.
Amos and his family have joined in.
My biggest fear at a moment like this is that policing as an institution and its leadership circles the wagons and folds its arms. That they become so defensive by the loud voices that they don't listen to the message. That's the worst mistake we could make in this. In a democracy, the police derive their authority from the consent of the people. If you don't have the consent of the people, you don't have legitimacy.
I just had my last interview with Danielle Bowman. It was a good one. I don't think I was in focus the whole time. I know I was in focus at the end. Hopefully I was in focus enough in the beginning, but we'll see. She said great things throughout, so yeah.
It doesn't feel good for anybody. I mean, I've always been kind of a loudmouth, so, you know, I'll speak my mind sometimes, and that's just kind of how I've always been. But I get that most people don't feel like, if they were in a grocery store and see someone, you know, make a racial slur to someone else, it's certainly easier to just feel bad, put your head down, look away, pull out your phone, and do anything you can to just not step into that situation. And you know, I would advocate safely, not looking for anyone to get hurt, but step into that situation. Sometimes all it needs to be is saying something. You help that person that was just victimized, number one, realize that, you know, you're not alone. Right. That, you know, someone cares about you. And yeah, I'm gonna cry. And on the other hand, then you kind of put that racist in their place. And I'm not looking, my thought isn't, I'm going to be able to change what's in your heart. Only you can do that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I really don't care. For me, it's, well, I want to make you think twice, because that's unacceptable. And just as racism is taught, I think behavior can be retaught. And you know what, if you keep your nasty, terrible thoughts, don't exhibit them, don't subject someone else to them. If they get practice, maybe they'll get better. And they could have that change of heart down the line. But again, I don't get to control that. Right. So yeah, I hope more people will step in those, and it may be a little stupid thing, but imagine what that means to the person you just stepped in to stand up for.
I remember I was a mess, and I went into this grocery store to get some whatever, I don't know. And I was standing there, and I guess my collar was turned on my shirt, and the cashier, she reached over and she fixed my collar, and I was just like,
yeah.
It's like that little thing.
Exactly. It seems like a stupid little moment.
And I'll never forget that, ever.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Can't remember what you went to the store for, but you could remember that act of kindness.
Yeah, she was,
Exactly.
And I'm heading back. I'm finished with Sanford, Florida. My regrets regarding Sanford, not getting more people just walking down the street. And I understand that's going to be difficult. It's like asking people for money on the street. But that's my regret. I think I talked to some good people. Some good things are happening in Sanford. Sanford is moving forward, I think, in my opinion. It has a long way to go, like the rest of the country, but I'm leaving here hopeful and not pessimistic. So I think that's a good feeling to leave a city with. We'll see with Georgia. All right, bye.
Hello, Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Hey, David here. Yes, sir, your vehicle is still in the repair process. It's not quite done just yet.
Do you have an ETA on that? I have a work commitment. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, gotcha. We're hoping no more than 2 more days, tops 3 days, for the additional battery installation. Of course, test drive it and make sure that the charging is doing okay. I know we were down for 2 days for the weekend, so that was unfortunately 2 days down. But we're hoping to have the vehicle no more than maybe 2 or 3 days tops.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Not a problem, sir. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Dear Tesla, the loaner is nice and all while you're fixing my car, but if I don't have it back by Wednesday, which is in 2 days, Wednesday morning, a matter of fact, so you really have 1 day. If I don't have it back by then, I'm going to put a lot of miles on that loaner.